City Council workshop has come to order. There's no roll call. This is just an informal workshop, so folks, just ask questions at any time you want. So there's no formality to it. Okay, guys, everybody?
Let's still do the roll call, because it's still kind of a workshop.
Okay, all right, well, let's do a roll call then. Can I get a roll call, please? According to-
Roll call. Councilmember Baptista.
Present.
Councilmember King.
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Garcia.
Present.
Mayor Sammer.
Present.
For the record, Councilmember Aguilar is currently non-attendance, but his attendance is expected soon.
Thank you. Okay, so let's go ahead and begin with the workshop, please.
Mr. Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, City Attorney, City Manager, council members, those that are in the audience, I want to welcome you this evening. And we are going to talk about revenue sharing. This was requested by the council from our last meeting. And so what we're going to look at, first of all, just so we can kind of get all on the same page, is why is there revenue sharing anyway? I mean, why is it something that we're even having to deal with? Well, what we've got to look at is we've got to go back to Proposition 13, which was approved by the voters back in 1978. And what it did is it capped property taxes at 1% of assessed value and limited assessment increases to 2% unless the ownership changed, there was a sale, or value was temporarily reduced. And we experienced that when we had the downturn in the housing in the mid-2000s. The property values decreased considerably. And so the assessor reset the values and reset the property tax amounts. But what's key with Proposition 13 is that there was a 1% tax rate, and it had to be shared between all local governments. Whereas before Proposition 13, each local government could set their own property tax rates and levy the property taxes, and the average property tax rate back then was over 2.5%, 2.67%. So we can kind of see Prop 13 capped it at 1%. Prior to that, if you kind of looked across the state of California, the tax rate was about 2.67%, and that's because every local government kind of did their own thing. Well, the voters said, we've had enough. You're causing us to lose our houses. Our taxes are going up so much, we just can't afford it anymore. And so, as the bottom sentence here says, this caused a huge reduction in property tax revenue to all local governments. So everybody, county, cities, special districts, all of their property tax revenue dropped significantly, and they were left scrambling on how to balance their budgets. So what happened was the legislature in their wisdom said, okay, even though the voters have said there's a cap on this, we're going to try to help out the counties by implementing the Section 99 to the California Revenue and Taxation Code. And what that said was that if any city wants to add property that was previously in the unincorporated area or in the county, there needs to be an agreement in place that shares the property tax. Because when property would move from the county to the city, the property tax would follow it. And the state said, wait a minute, given Proposition 13, we need to kind of come up with some kind of an arrangement to share property tax. So this became revenue sharing. Section 99 specifically addresses the sharing of property tax only. No other revenue is mentioned in Section 99 of the California Revenue and Taxation Code, just property tax. So what this means is, without an agreement in place, no annexations can occur. So that's really kind of what revenue sharing is in a nutshell. So kind of what's been going on in the city of Livingston with revenue sharing? Well, the latest agreement between the city and the county was entered into in September of 2004. And this agreement only included property taxes. It didn't include sales taxes. But the county then determined that the Livingston General Plan that was adopted that carried this out through 2025 conflicted with the county general plan. Now, we might not agree with their reasoning, but nonetheless, they canceled the agreement in July of 2009, and negotiations have been ongoing off and on since then to arrive at a new agreement. So as we go through these series of slides, there's some words that I think we all kind of need to understand because they're kind of the property tax lingo or the property tax speak, for example. So the first one, of course, is annexation, and that's not a word that we've invented or the county's invented. It's actually a part of the Cortese-Knox-Herzberg Local Government Reorganization Act of 2000, and it means attachment or addition of property to the city. So when we talk about moving unincorporated or property from the unincorporated area to the city, that's what we mean by annexation. And again, that's not our definition, that's what's in the law. So the ad valorem property tax, that's another term that we will see through revenue sharing. And that's the tax that's imposed on real and tangible personal property based upon the value of the property. And I think for those of us that own houses or own property, we get a tax bill every year, and that's what we're paying is the ad valorem property tax. Now the property tax then is broken down into kind of two pieces. One is the base property tax. The other, which is the next line, is the incremental property tax. Now the base property tax is what the tax is at the time the area is annexed or brought into the city. So for example, if the property is in the county and for whatever reason that property is assessed $1,000 of property tax, when it comes into the city, that's considered the base property tax. The incremental property tax is the increase or decrease in the assessed value over the base property within the annexed area. So for example, if raw dirt, farmland or whatever is annexed into the city at a certain value, that's base. If it's developed and there's houses or commercial properties added to that property, then it increases in value, and there's a tax on that, and that's known as the incremental property tax. So there's kind of two pieces that are going on there. The other term that we see, and we talked about a little bit about this at our last meeting, is ERAF. That's an acronym for the Education Revenue Augmentation Fund. This is a percentage that's required by the California Revenue Taxation Code to be transferred to the state ERAF fund because back in the mid-2000s when there was the downturn, the state experienced a severe revenue shortage, and they go, oh, let's just tap the counties and the cities' property tax. So that's what they did with this ERAF. Legislation has been passed since then. Actually, it was a ballot measure that said the state can no longer do this kind of thing, but nonetheless, this went in place and is still in place at this time. And that money goes for schools, is what that's for. So what I thought would be interesting is to just kind of show you right now everyone that gets a bite of the property tax dollar. Because when we talk about property taxes, you think, oh, it's the property taxes that are paid in Livingston that come to Livingston. Well, that's not the case. So if we look at this right here, the unincorporated property tax dollar breakdown, that would be property that's not within the city, it's in the county. We can see of the dollar, right here, all these different areas get a little piece of that. And you wouldn't really think that mosquito abatement would get a little piece of the property tax. Well, it does. The Winton Cemetery, well, it does. The schools, of course, all of them, the community college, the Livingston Elementary, Merced High, they all get a little piece of it. And County Fire gets some. And again, this column over here is when the land is in the county, not within the city. And that's why you see under the captions of Livingston, NA, because if it's in the county, we're not gonna get any money from that. But currently, for those properties that are within the city and are paying property tax, you can see now, pretty much everybody kind of drops a little bit, and Livingston now gets a piece of it. There's the ERAF piece for Livingston, and then the Livingston General Fund. So, again, this is a breakdown for properties that are currently within the city. So, it's a bit eye-opening to kind of see all the people that kind of have a little bite of the pie, you know? So, what I want to look at now is kind of where we started with the revenue sharing negotiations. And if we go back to kind of last fall, where I would say negotiations were probably the most serious that they had been in quite a while, we can see over here that the county proposal was that the county retain 100% of the base. If we remember the definition that we just said about the base, and the increment, we looked at the definition of the increment, from the fire fund. That's what they were proposing for that item. The city at that time said, okay, we're good with that, because we have a contract through the county for CAL FIRE to provide fire service. We might not agree that we're getting the value that we should for the money that's going to them, but nonetheless, we said that's probably a reasonable thing to do. The next part was, which is really what was in the old revenue sharing agreement, is that the county retain 100% of the base. In other words, whatever property tax came across when it came into the city, they keep it, and then they would split the increment 75 to the county, 25 to the city. And that's, of course, after the ERAF pieces have been deducted. And what the city proposed was, nobody's going to be made whole in this deal. Nobody's going to have their full cost of service paid by sharing of this revenue. So we think the fairest is 50-50. Let's just do it 50-50, not 75-25. And then the proposal also was that it be calculated in a little different way on the ERAF, so actually both of us get a little more money. But that's kind of what was being proposed at that time by the city side. Then what the county said was, through December 31, 2021, the city will share 2.5% of the city's 1% sales tax. And the city said, no, the prior agreement didn't have any sharing of sales tax, so we don't think it should be part of this because the property tax sharing in the government code only speaks of property tax sharing, so we don't want sales tax to be a part of this. The county went on to propose to say on then January 1, 2022, to the 5%, or the 2.5% of the city's 1%, they would add another 5%. And so at that point, the county would be receiving 7.5% of the city's 1% rather than sales tax. And again, the city said, no, this really needs to be about property taxes. Sales tax shouldn't even be in this agreement. That was what was put forth at that time. The other points here are the 10-year agreement with 180 days prior written notice before the end of any fiscal year. And the city basically said, that works for us. The county also said cancellation of the agreement will not affect the county receiving a share of the sales tax or property tax. So in other words, if the agreement was entered into, even if the agreement was terminated, those would not stop. And again, the city said, we don't really think sharing of sales tax should be a part of this, so we don't think that should be in the agreement. The county then proposed that the city will agree to participate in future discussions to establish an agricultural mitigation program for productive agricultural land and urban development. This is where prime ag land that's in the county is brought into the city, and there's a lot of issues around that, so the city said, yeah, we don't have a problem with that. That's fine, we'll do that. And then the next thing that the city wanted was to agree to communicate and coordinate with county on general plan policies. And the city said, okay, that works for us. We ought to be talking. We ought to be working together. Our planning ought to be coordinated. So that's kind of where, again, we kind of got serious. It started about a year ago. These are kind of where the county was proposing. Here's kind of what the city said. No, this is where we think we ought to be. So now what we can look at is the current county proposal. And the main deal points are the county retains 100% of the base and increment fire fund. That kind of goes back to where we started originally. The city doesn't have any issue with that. And the second one is the county agreed with the city on how they would deal with the base and increment. In other words, the city would get 100% of it, the city EREF would be subtracted, and then we would be dividing it 63 to the county, 37 to the city. And if we remind ourselves of kind of where we started back here, it was this deal point on the city's side, but it'd be 50-50. But where the county came back and said, okay, we agree with kind of the way your methodology is, but we think it ought to be 63% to the county and 37% to the city. So it's better than our original agreement, and they're giving up a little bit from kind of where they started. And then effective January 1, 2024, the city would share 5% of the city's 1% Bradley Burns sales tax. And then effective January 1, 2029, the city would share 7.5% of the city's 1% Bradley Burns sales tax. And so that's a little different from kind of where they started, where they said through December 31, 2021, it would be 2.5%, and then 2022, it would be 5%. So the dates on those have been pushed out a little bit. The 10-year agreement is the same. They're still proposing that the cancellation of the agreement will not affect the county receiving a share of the sales tax or property tax. And again, back where the city started, they didn't feel that sharing of the sales tax was appropriate. And then the last 2 points were where we had agreed before on discussions on agricultural mitigation and communication and coordination with county and general plan policies.
Hey, Brad,
Yes.
can you back up one, please?
You betcha.
Okay, where it says on the cancellation, on there, I believe we're saying that county can't counsel on us unless the voters change the laws to what affects the, I believe that was in the agreement, the proposed agreement, that county can't counsel, and also that they have no say in our general plan, that it has to go to LAFCO, I believe, for annexations and all that. That's not exactly how it is. I don't think so.
Well, if you're speaking of these words down here.
Yes, no, the first one on top where where it says. Cancellation. Yeah, cancellation 10-year, I believe that's not exactly how this is.
Well,
If I may.
and I certainly
Okay.
defer to you, Mr. Mayor,
No,
but.
I'll have Jose, go ahead, Jose.
So just the slide is correct about the 10 years. The cancellation, however, it says the 10 years provided that either party may terminate this agreement due to changes in state statutory law, court decisions, voter decisions, or state administrative actions having an impact on revenue. I have talked to county council, mayor, as I informed you, and we may be adding, a little bit to that sentence, but it does state that some event has to happen. It's just not a free will
Yeah.
of wanting to terminate. It also provides, and I think what you're talking about, Mayor, is originally the agreement stated that one of the reasons for cancellation was if there was inconsistencies that they thought between the general plans, and that's something you had them take out.
Yeah, so I don't believe that's exactly correct.
Well, but if I might pose a question to our council, I mean, there's words on how it gets terminated, but regardless of how it gets terminated, I respectfully request kind of your thought on this.
No, I'm talking about the 10-year agreement. They can't, that within 180, that's not, they can't. We can't, and they cannot cancel on a 180-day notice. Yeah, for no reason. The reason we did that is because last time we thought we had an agreement. They decided one morning to wake up and say, you know what, hell with you guys. That's the reason is that they cannot cancel this.
Okay.
The second line, you're absolutely correct.
Okay.
I'm gonna let everybody answer questions, but right now, and also the general plan, if they had proposed that it has to be consistent, where they were trying to control of the general plan, that if it doesn't meet with the approval, no, that's been taken out as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, they have no control over our general plan. We control it as long as LAFCO agrees.
Yes.
County's
yes.
out of the picture.
Okay, so we good on this then? Okay. No, thank you. Okay. Okay, the next slide that I would like to go through is the fiscal projections from entering into this agreement. And this line over here, dollars. This axis here are years. And as we can see here, there's really nothing in 1920 or 2021 because typically annexations take a bit of time to get through LAFCO, to get to the point where there can actually be something done to that property to improve it. So we've started a revenue stream out in 21-22, which is a few years out. Now, we need to note that this revenue, property tax revenue, is just from the newly annexed areas only. It's not from any other place. That's the only place that it's from. The red bar right here, this is the first 6 months of the sales tax paid out to the county, which starts January 1 of 2024. So we got to remind ourselves that, again, the property tax is just from the annexed areas. The sales tax is citywide. There's no restriction as to it just coming from the annexed areas. So we need to understand that's kind of why we're seeing a lot of red above the green, because the sales tax is citywide. The property tax revenue is just from the newly annexed areas. So again, in 23 and 24, that's when the sales tax would first show up. It starts January 1 of 2024. In 24-25, that's when we have a whole year of sales tax. And as we can see, the sales tax because it's coming out citywide, it pops up here pretty good, and the property then slowly grows to where we get out to 27, 28, and it's about a break even, okay? 28, 29 then is when the other 2.5% kicks in January of 2029, and as we can see then, we kind of jump up above our property tax again, because again, this is citywide, and our property tax is just from the annexed area. And so then in 29-30, this is when we have a full year of sales tax at the 7.5% paid out to the county. So as we can see, from kind of a revenue perspective, we'll have to figure out somehow to kind of make up the difference here on some of these if this is what the council agrees to tonight. Then are there any questions? my presentation.
Council?
Yeah, I got a couple questions. So I was looking, or on the 2018 proposals, you had 2.5%, if you go back to the slide, 2.5% of the city's 1%, and then in 2022, it's 5%, right? So are you adding those two numbers together to get 7.5%, or was 5% like the last number?
Okay, let's just remind ourselves, this was a proposal back in November. That's not the proposal anymore. The proposal has changed to this, 5% at a later date, and then another 2.5% 5 years from then, for a total of 7.5%.
Okay, yeah, I get that, but are we adding those numbers together, or 7.5% the total number, or are we?
7.5 is the total number.
Okay.
Yeah.
So,
5 plus 2.5.
so in,
7.5.
so in 2000, or the other slide, it was 5%. So they're asking for 2.5 more now.
Well, no, they got the 7.5% there also. It was just a little different timing of when they got to the 7.5%. Because if you take, there's the 2.5, you add the 5, that's another 7.5%.
The 2.5 is first instead of after.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just kind of flip it around.
So on the graph chart of the last slide, so by 2029, we will actually be negative. If
Well,
this,
we're negative here, 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 and here. Here's where we kind of get back even. And then another 2.5% kicks in, and we go negative again. And then here's where we have a full year at 7.5%.
so basically after 2023 to 2029, the city will be negative if this is
If we're
good.
trying to match those two revenue sources, if we're trying to stay even, that's kind of the way it's going to look.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and let the public ask questions. Just, you can come up, that we get you on record, please. And because this is a workshop, the 3-minute rule does not apply.
Is there any slide that you're most interested in?
Well,
looking
first,
at, or
yes, if you can go back.
Want me to go back?
uh,
Keep going?
I think it's that one.
This one?
No, the next
This one here?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Jose Moran, 945 Parkview Drive, Livingston, California. On this slide, I have a question in regards to the third to last, where it says cancellation of the agreement will not affect county receiving a share of the sales tax or property. Does that mean third to last?
No, actually, it could, if the way I understand it, and is if there's a voter change, it doesn't have to be the county, it can be either side. So there could something that says, hey, you can't do one or the other. So due to a voter change, either one can, at that moment, can cancel it.
Yeah, but it says, what I'm trying to refer to is where it says county, the agreement will not affect county receiving a share of the sales tax or property. Does that mean that the county will still continue to receive those monies, whether or not it has been postponed, canceled, or suspended? The county will still continue to receive those funds.
The
Is that
property
correct?
tax, I believe, will be the same, yes.
The sales tax.
I mean, yes,
So,
but I do believe, even though it may be canceled, anything that we have in the annexation at that moment will continue. So say that we were to extend to spot A.
okay, so up to whatever has been
Yeah,
annexed.
if
Okay,
providing that we have our, and then correct me, guys, if we go through our general plan and every future count, whatever, if to a certain point, once those plans have been adopted, those areas, we can't just do any future
yeah,
annexations
yeah,
until.
okay. So for those areas, they will continue to
Yes.
receive
Yes, it's the future
the
annexation
future.
that will
Okay,
affect.
okay. So, and then, if you can go into,
I just want to make sure we're clear here, sorry for the interruptions, is annexation in and of itself does not produce property tax. The only thing that produces property tax is
Development.
development. So if property gets annexed and for whatever reason, no development occurs, there's an economic downturn, you know, I'm trying to play the devil's advocate here. Whereas the sales tax, since it's citywide, it really has nothing to do with the annexations. It's gonna happen regardless. I just wanna make sure everybody's clear on that point.
Mr. Grant is absolutely correct. But the cancellation will continue, yes, that is, the property tax and the sales
from-
tax will continue.
okay. So, if you can move forward, just one slide forward, that's okay.
This one here?
Yes, so just to verify it and so that other people are aware of this, the green bar, which is property tax revenue from newly annexed areas, that is only if they are developed, that is property tax revenue to the city or to the county?
To the city.
To the city, okay.
And you're right, it's only
Only-
if there's annexation and only if there's development on that annexation.
Okay, and then regardless of the green bar, sales tax based on what we have right now will be paid out to the county regardless. Okay. All right, thank you.
Anybody else?
I got a question, Board. Brad,
Go ahead.
can you explain how does Board of Equalization, how does that affect us?
The Board of Equalization, which is really the California Department of Tax and Fee Administration. Governor Brown got mad at the Board of Equalization folks and he said, "You're done, I'm going to move you over here." So anyway, that's just a kind of a side trivia note. But what the Board of Administration does, and now the California Department of Tax and Fee Administration does, it administers the collection of sales and use tax. So if you have a business and your customer comes in and you collect your 7 3/4% or whatever it is where you are, that gets sent up to the state, and then the state looks at the kind of where it came from, and it divides it up and said, "Okay, state, you get your 6 cents. Okay, local transportation, you get your 1.5 cent. And City of Livingston, you get your 1%. Now, if an agreement is entered into here where we agree to share, there's words in that agreement that says we will give the authority to the Board of Equalization to take out the county's piece now and send it to them. So we won't get the 1% anymore. We will get the 1% less the 5% initially, and then the 7.5% 5 years after that. Did that?
Okay, this is still open, so
Hi, this is Adnan Bath. My question is, why would you guys even sacrifice sales tax in the first place?
well, the reason for it is, county says, and it's not only us, Atwater, Los Banas, Merced, they've all already given it up. And when they gave it up, county said to us, if you don't agree to this, we don't have to agree to you on any revenue sharing agreement.
So from 2024 to 2029, how much money are we gonna lose over sales tax over this dollar
Well,
amount?
if you,
mean, it's
can you
quite a-
explain that, Brad, please?
Quite a few.
Well, if you go from here to here, that's about $140,000.
But every year, we're losing.
Yeah, there's a gap. The
So
gap would be, so for
if we're
this-
losing, where are you guys gonna get that extra money for? How is that gonna affect the residents? Are we gonna have to start paying more taxes? I mean, it doesn't make sense. You guys are gonna gain, it's red and green, you guys are losing. Why would you guys wanna lose?
Hold on a second. Can you put in the record that Mr. Aguilar is here at 6:11, please? Okay. Then what we have and is, this is what the county's proposing. And basically, they've said to us, if you don't share with us, stay where you're at, don't grow, whittle away and die. Now, we don't know, these are projections, and this is what others have given up, and we have tried for a year. Now, this does not include any CDF fees and all that, so usually those do come in, like a lot of them are entering into. So those numbers may not be exactly where they are. Now, we don't know, and this is all projections, we don't know what kind of growth we're gonna get. We could be worse off than this, or depending on what develops, numbers could actually be different too.
So let's say it doesn't develop, so you're trying to say the chances
Yes.
of us
Ye-
not
ye-
developing,
Yes.
we're still gonna lose more.
That
We're
is-
gonna lose regardless. So
That- that
if we
is-
get the land, it doesn't develop, we're
Yeah.
still losing sales tax no matter
That,
what.
that is definitely
That don't make sense.
Yeah, that is definitely a possibility. Now, on the other side of it, what do? When Merced gave their sales tax up, and then Atwater and Atwater and Los Banos gave it up, they pretty much set the precedent what the county's gonna do. Our staff and everybody, we were asking for the same agreement as Merced. That's exactly what we got.
Yeah,
Yeah, hold on. So we could take what Atwater has, or we can take what Merced has.
but all the towns that you're saying are way bigger and have more businesses, more everything than Livingston does. So if they're
Mm-hmm.
gonna pay more, they actually have more. So when
Yeah.
I go shopping, I go Turlock, I go Merced. Los
Right.
Banos is big, Atwater's big, Livingston is small, everything is big. So why would you want the same thing as them? We should have to pay less since we're a
Yes.
smaller
Yes.
town. And plus, we're still in the developing phase. So if we're in the developing phase,
Mm-hmm.
okay, let us develop and then negotiate. It makes more sense because now we know what we're gonna get. But this right here is if we don't develop, we lost sales tax automatically. It doesn't make sense at all.
Well, that's another thing. We can't go to Livingston and buy a TV anywhere, or any furniture. So Atwater and Merced, their sales tax is actually higher than ours. So they can afford to give it away. We can't.
Yes, and also, if you, I don't believe, and one can step in, that if county is not gonna negotiate without a sales tax. And we have tried, and I don't believe that they will, and they're not required to. We can go through the ways of other things, but I don't know if it's gonna make a difference. So, Juan, did you want to add to that? You were with me for almost a year there, so go ahead.
You want me to touch bases regarding the sales
Yeah.
tax portion?
Yeah, and how they feel and what our negotiations were.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, it's, you guys, I don't know what you guys have reviewed or gone over, but, we face a situation where, yes, the county's being the county. They have mentioned that it's gonna be, basically, that it has to include a sales tax portion in there, and in regards to the property, tax sharing agreement. And then, yes, they've cited other cities like Atwater, Merced, and in regards to that, I understand both sides. I understand your concerns totally, that we're not the same as Merced or Atwater. We don't have a big retailer in town. We should be considered differently. So we're kind of being pushed against a corner in a way, So I totally see your concerns, absolutely. And I know, like, for example, other smaller cities, they do not have a sales portion in their agreement. For example, Dos Palos, Castine. So we just find ourselves somewhere in the middle, you know. We are a little bit bigger than those two small towns, but we are smaller than Merced and Atwater. And I'm sure Brad kind of probably pointed that out, that we should be considered differently. But at the same time, I know we are, you know, we want to expand, we want to grow. You know, there is that side where, you know, kind of, you know, go for the best we can at this time, or, you know, come up with a plan as a council, you know. So that's why I'm sure we're here trying to figure out what's going on, make sure everybody understands what we're getting into. How is it going to affect us currently, but also how is it going to affect us in the future? So what I wanted to say and bring up to everybody is that it's not a routine thing that we're talking about here. It's not a routine item in the agenda. This is a big deal, and we should be considering it as a big deal. So that's why I did welcome the workshop. And to me, it's very important that everybody understands it, you know, and the community understands it, because ultimately we're responsible to the community. We're here representing the community and the best interests of everybody and the community. So it's important that everybody knows what we're getting into, because ultimately we're gonna be held responsible for our decision. So in regards to that, I'm sorry, I probably went too far, but yeah, sales tax, yeah, it's something that the county has communicated to us that it needs to be basically in the property and the tax sharing agreement, or they won't negotiate, basically.
Yeah. So,
So,
I'm just saying, I've been a businessman for a long time. I know a good deal when I see it, and this is definitely, you guys really got to consider this. Look over it once, 2, 3 times, because I'm telling you, it's a bad deal. It's a bad deal. I think you guys are educated. I think you guys can get a better deal. You just got to try a little bit harder, trust me.
I got one thing, what do you call, with the new election coming up, we have, I think, 3 supervisors are due for election. So maybe we could wait until we get somebody that will be in our favor. And we don't have to rush it just because we know they don't want to give us a deal.
well, you know,
We're
I don't.
a year away.
It may be a year away. I mean, we don't think that they're going to give anything up. They have the upper hand. This is going to be based on, it's not necessarily supervisors. They may be voting, but we think that this was the best deal we can negotiate.
Okay, so with this new slide or the presentation, can't we take this to the county and says, hey, how is this fair? Look, we're in the red, we're just, for the future, I think we could get it back, lower than 7.5%. I'm not sure what other cities, how much they pay. Do you know that offhand, Brad?
City of Merced pays 7.5. Atwater and Los Banos, I believe they pay the same.
Pretty close.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Atwater and Los Banos do not have the ERAF augmentation, so we do get a better deal than Atwater and Merced because of the ERAF. So, well, yeah, I don't think the county is really concerned about Gustin and Dos Palos that much, because and as they mentioned, they have nothing we can tax right now anyway. So go ahead.
Just another question. We have heard of what the possibility could be, with both the property tax revenue and the payout of sales tax. But what have we lost, so that way more people can understand, by not having this agreement for the last 10 years? And what can we gain But by having this agreement, and
What we have lost, Mr. Moran, is
give-
since the cancellation of the agreement, city has not been able to really work on the general plan and annex. Currently, I believe we are out of land. There is no more place to grow. And we can spend another year, 2 years to do this, or whatever. I mean, that's up to the council. I don't believe the county's gonna really give that up because they know they have it. Because it was hard to even get this. Our staff attended some meetings. There were a lot of pounding on desk. I believe Mr. Aguilar and I, you may not think that we didn't fight hard for it, but we really, really fought hard. And at some point, you have to say, this is what the best you're gonna get. And this is what I believe that they're gonna give us.
so this is also, not only, I'm not only asking the question for me, but I'm asking the questions for, people out in the community that are not here. But if we look at the scenario, let's say that we're not able to add in, annex any more land into the city, but that particular piece of land gets developed. So those taxes, that tax revenue is going to go into the county, okay? So I just want people to really see all different scenarios, to kind of paint a better picture. So let's say that we're not able to annex that piece, additional land from the county, and that land gets developed, and then so that tax revenue is going to go into the county no matter what. But then the other scenario will be that we will be getting our own tax revenue from sales within the city, But so just trying to put out all of the different scenarios that could happen one way or the other. Thanks.
Anybody else from the public?
Okay, my question on that, Mr. Moran basically said that the county could develop it. I don't see how the county could develop anything because in order for them to develop, they would have to hook up to city
No, they don't.
services, no?
No, look at
The
Santa
sewer
Nella.
or any of that stuff?
Look-
So they can
no.
develop it on their own?
Yeah,
That's it?
they can do their own too.
Okay.
Yeah, there's no rule that prohibits them from developing, because look at all of the unincorporated areas that they have built homes on.
Okay.
And, look at Santa Nella for once, Council, further comments, conversation?
And the question of annexation that came up is when you annex, you can't like spot annex and just annex something else. You're right. You have to, it's contiguous from
Yeah.
the city, from the city property, from the city line, the city limits. And if you have to capture the entire property altogether. You couldn't like spot annex, annex a piece of property that's further away. You have to get whatever's close by the city limits up to the property you want to go to.
So no more like county islands or city islands, correct? Is that?
Correct.
All right. So if we want to expand all the way to, let's say, example, Sultana and Peach, so everything from the county line outside the city limits, all the way there has to be annexed, correct?
Yeah, you cannot, and that's not up to the county, it's up to LAFCO. Yeah, but they do, and you're absolutely right, Mayor Pro Tem, they don't allow leapfrogging. It has to be contiguous. At least one tiny corner has to touch. So you can have land like this, you just can't skip it. At least one side has to touch the other side. So that can be done.
So this is just my opinion. I think we can get a better deal out of the county. I mean, we've been out of it since, 2009, I think it was, out of a contract, or do we have any major businesses or home developers that are interested if we annex property?
One of the things also is for us to, you have to kind of think along the timelines of future. Say that we wait 2 years or a year, whatever, because it could be another year after, as you put down for the election. Say that you wait till then and you were to get something, we don't know, okay? By the time you put your general plan, do your plans and everything else and get the general plan approved through LAFCO and all that, it could be another 2 years or longer before you can annex land into the cities. So you could push development up to 5 years away. That is also a possibility. It doesn't mean, you can't just go and say, okay, you know, we negotiated, now let's grow. It doesn't work that way. All these plans have to be done. Water plant, everything has to be done and brought to them. So you could literally step this a lot further down than you think. Am I correct on this?
Well, that's why there's a timeline gap here
Yes.
between here and here.
Yes, because it would take the
Yeah.
city at least a couple of years
Yeah,
to go through
Does.
everything, annexation. First of all, getting all the property people that want come in, as I understand the process. We don't know, there's no plan right now on which way the city's gonna grow or what the plan is. Every council, this, future, whatever, would have to get together and say, and that's Mayor Pro, and we're just using this as a hypothetical, to go to Sultana, to Peach, or whatever. We have to get the property owners on board and says at least they have to come to us and say they're interested in being annexed. And then city has to develop the plan for traffic and what, that can take years, 1, 2 years, maybe longer. And then you got to go through LAFCO, that could be a year process or more too. So
Yeah.
it can be a lengthy process, and don't think that somebody can't challenge your plan down the road too. It could be some environmental group or somebody can say, and it could take. And so, yes, there's a risk, but we don't know what type of development we're gonna get. We don't know what the plan's gonna be. Those are best case estimates. Yes, it looks like the way it is, and it could be different too. But nobody has a crystal ball that we can do into. And if you think that we can negotiate a better deal, I don't know. I mean, we don't know what the county's gonna do.
Mr. Mayor, if I may, just in the interest of making sure all the information's on the table.
I understand.
I spent some time this morning reviewing the housing element plan that was adopted by the council in 2016, I think it was.
Mm-hmm.
And what I wanted to kind of find out, because I figured the question might come up as to whether or not if we waited, kind of what's going to happen if we wait. And so I wanted to figure out sort of how many buildable lots do we have in the city, just to see what we have. And I worked with the building folks, I worked with the planning folks, and right now in the works that are kind of being developed, we have 168 lots. 168 lots. And in addition to that, if you go to the housing element, there's about 400 more multifamily or single-family lots that could be sited on property that's within the city. So you kind of put those two numbers together, and it's about 600 lots. Now, are people willing to develop there? Are they willing to sell in order to have it developed? But nonetheless, that kind of gives you a little idea of kind of where we are. Now you say, okay, what's the market absorption of that? And you kind of say, well, what's market absorption? Well, that's kind of how fast they're built, how fast they're sold. And if you kind of look back for the last 4 or 5 years, there were a couple years there where it was zero, nothing. And we all knew that because of the downturn. And then it slowly picked up. There was like 30, then 40. I think this last year was maybe about 100. And I think we're on a pace this year for maybe 75 or 80. So if you kind of take that 600 and say, well, how long could it last? You've probably got 8 to 10 years worth of areas to build on, just for information that's out there.
So then, I mean, we're, at this point, we're not running out of land. I mean,
Well, I'm
If-
not a developer, I'm
but I'm
not a
saying-
planner, I'm not a building guy, I'm
but there's
just looking at
property in
numbers.
the
just looking
city
at
that could
numbers.
get developed, you know,
Yeah.
so.
Did you guys get a chance to go, like, comparison between cities already? Did you guys get that information? Or no? No. Like, compared to other agreements with, like, for example, Atwater or Dos Palos, or do we guys?
We have not. The one that I'm most familiar with is the city of Merced. And what is being proposed here is pretty much the same to what the city of Merced has. It's just that theirs is in 2 separate agreements. Property tax is in one agreement, sales tax is in another agreement. My understanding, although I've not read Atwater's or Las Banis's, and I don't know, county or city council, if you know differently, correct me here, but I think theirs is in the same agreement. And I think they're kind of all, they kind of get to the same place over the
Yeah.
duration of them, I think.
But I don't believe Atwater and Los Banos has the ERAF, correct?
They don't calculate
Okay,
it the
so-
way we calculate it. They do it the old way where the county keeps the base and they get the increment. So it's a little
So-
different calculation
Atwater is giving 75-25,
on the increment.
yes.
Yeah.
And we're giving 63 and,
6337
yeah,
on base and increment.
right,
Only after taking out city. So on the
So-
property tax side, we're doing a little better.
yeah.
Yeah.
And it was, and originally, they didn't even want to do ERAF. And they said that, you know, this is what the negotiation came down to.
Well, they're still doing ERAP, but they're just doing it differently.
Differently, yes.
Differently,
But we're getting a better deal than Atwater as far
Yes.
as
yes.
the property tax side of it.
Property
And the
tax,
sales
yes.
tax is exactly the same.
And of course, back, maybe just a little more history here, back when Merced entered into this agreement, I don't think any of us were born. I mean, it was way a long time ago. And that's when Merced was the regional shopping center. I mean, it was the place. If you wanted to shop, you went to Merced. Well, that's all changed now. It's really not the regional shopping center that it was. But that's kind of, once those agreements get in place, they're basically in place for perpetuity, you know?
Can I ask you guys a question? So, council looks at staff for direction and recommendation. Obviously, you guys are the day-to-day people running the city. I don't, and I hate to put you guys in this spot, but from your professional experience and your professional opinion, I know the answer to this, but what are your genuine thoughts about this?
2 things. On the property tax, I still think it ought to be 50-50. But I think what you've negotiated is about as good as it's going to get on the property tax side. I really do. Cities have 0 leverage with counties, and the only way you can really get anything out of them is not talking logic, but it's political. I mean, let's just be honest about it. Sales tax, I personally think, as we've already talked tonight, that Livingston is a bit unique. We don't have the same shopping opportunities here. And where we go and shop, like Atwater, Merced, Turlock, at least in Atwater, Merced, they're already getting some of Livingston's sales tax because people are going there and shopping and they're sharing. What I think would be fair, if we've got to do some sort of citywide or some sort of sales tax, is to say, okay, we will do sales tax, but only on growth. Only on growth. And so what I mean by that is we have a population, 14,000, whatever it is, and it's documented by the Department of Finance every January. And so we can take that population and determine a per capita sales tax. Next time January comes around, we see that our population has increased 2%, 3%, whatever the magic number is. We recalculate what the per capita is, and we say, okay, here's the increase. County, we will give you 7.5% of the increase. That's just my recommendation as to fair, because then it's based upon actual growth. We aren't giving away sales tax, because if there's no growth, if none of the green shows up, the red still happens based on this proposal. But again, it's up to you, council, to decide what you think is best. But that would be my recommendation on how the sales tax ought to be done.
And Mr. Aguilar, this idea of a sales tax and incremental in the growth area, was that proposed to the county? Did we propose it? And what was their response? Everything that staff had said, we brought it up. And the response was, you guys asked for, and this was at staff's request. I'm not trying to blame anybody, because ultimately we do this. It was, we want what Merced has. So we focused on what Merced has. Now, we were told, you don't like that? Pick Atwater or Los Banos, and we'll give you that. But make no mistake about it, they're not going to negotiate on anything other than that. So now, we at staff level have talked about it. What do we do if we don't agree? Well, we can go to a non-binding arbitration, and it's simply going to say, no, we're not going to agree to it. We're not going to vote. Or they'll let it sit there. And we've had this conversation at staff level with them. And or they simply will not bring it up. Or we can take it to court and say, we're going to go through court, and court's going to simply say, this is an agreement between the city and the county. We're not going to get into it. Because the way they calculate it is, what does it cost to provide services to Livingston, the area? That's how they calculate it. And they have the nexus to say, this is what the cost is. So, yes, there's an option, but it all depends on what you think may be politically different. It's up to the council. I believe Mr. Aguilar and I have, over the year, worked hard to get the best deal possible. It may look bad, but there are some options in there. I know it's not included in the sales tax. I mean, in the property tax. I don't think it takes into account any CFDs we may get. So those numbers could be slightly different based on CFDs. None of those are. One of the things we're very good at is any new business coming in. I know everybody that's come in has participated in it. It's not calculated in there. I don't believe, at least I don't believe it is.
No, you're right, Mayor, it's not.
Okay,
But let's just
so those numbers,
let's just remind ourselves that the sales tax is citywide. Any CFD would be for a small
Yes,
area,
we
so it wouldn't
get
make
it.
up the difference.
we get it.
It wouldn't
But-
make up the difference.
Yes, we get it. I get it very clearly. Now, the question we have to ask in staff, if we go back and say, we're not going to give it, and they said, no, you're not going to have it, what's the next plan? How long did it take Merced to finally cave in and say, we're going to do this in the county? 10 years? They fought together for 10 years. And
Well, the agreement was attempted to be renegotiated before the existing agreement had
But
expired.
it took 10 years to come to
Well,
something.
and what really caused it to be
No,
able to...
I'm not trying to, I'm just, no, I wasn't saying that, Mr. Brad. I wasn't trying to say that it was, I was just saying how county can delay things. That's all I'm trying to say. County will delay this until they get what they want. And best thing, just like Atwater and Los Banos learned, that, and you're just gonna have to figure out different ways to do it. Another possibility could be a incremental sales tax, a half-cent sales tax or something, There are options. But at this point, Mr. Aguilar, unless you got something to add to it?
Well,
do you
can
have-
just one moment, please. Before, Brad, you were cut off by the mayor. Can you explain what he was asking? Or what you were going to say?
Yeah, go ahead.
Thank
please.
you.
Thank you, Councilmember. What I was starting to say was that what really brought the two parties to the table was there were words in the old revenue sharing agreement that had to do with redevelopment. And then redevelopment went away, and so then the agreement really was kind of null and void because that part of it was no longer applicable. And that's really what brought the parties together.
Yeah, and.
Thank
yeah,
you.
But it took, I remember, and I applaud Mr. Grant, you did a great job in negotiating and getting it done. I was just trying to point out how difficult the county can be if they don't want to agree with you. Mr. Aguilar, do you want to-
Yeah, this is the last part I will say. It's that, yeah, I mean, we have met with the county, and yes, like you mentioned, they are difficult to, I don't want to say difficult to deal with, but I know they have the, obviously they want to look out for the county and their side of things. To me, this is obviously a very complex issue and very complicated, and a lot of moving parts and a lot to consider. So it's not a easy thing or a straightforward kind of thing. So I just want to say that we didn't take it lightly. We did negotiate in good faith, and we did try our best to come up with the best agreement with the county. And I see both sides of the I see both sides where perhaps with more pressure, more waiting, possibly, and unfortunately it is sometimes a political thing where something better could come out. And then I do see the other side where that's probably the best we're gonna get, regardless of who's in office or whatever the case may be. But it's I would like to say to the council that it's a very hard decision. It's a lot of things to consider, a lot of things to look at, and for me the most important thing is for everybody to really be informed and really have a grasp on the issue or on the item. Even for myself, like I'm still learning some things. Like I am kind of new to this kind of stuff. So specifically to this item, so I'm still picking up some stuff and information. Even the whole thing that the smaller cities don't have the sales tax portion, and so just in general, make sure everybody feels comfortable and it's well informed regarding what we're voting on, what we're deciding, and also just really look at the future and how if we want to expand, how is it going to affect the future, in regards to future generations. It's a big decision, so, and it shouldn't be taken lightly, for sure.
Thank you.
Yeah, like since the county already pretty much made their mind up, and we already know we have that deal on the table, so it just benefits us to wait. Maybe we could get another supervisor that'll go in our way, because we already have this. They're already gonna agree on this. So
No,
we-
they have not agreed to it.
Yeah.
We have to pass it, propose what we're asking, and then after that, they have to vote on it still. They have not voted on this yet. They could simply say, They say we do that, we try to renegotiate. They could simply say, we're gonna start all over again. We don't know. We could work out, or it could be worse. And they were really, really not willing to do ERAF because they haven't done that for anybody else. But it's the decision we have to make or not make, and that's up to everybody.
Yeah, I mean, this question for the mayor. I mean, you keep comparing us to Merced and Atwater. I mean, how about comparing us to the other smaller cities? I mean,
Yeah,
we have no, can I finish? Just
sure, go ahead,
Okay,
please.
we have no, I mean, Merced's 81,000 people compared to Livingston, 14,000 or whatnot. Atwater, I mean, this is 38,000. I mean, there is no way that we're the same as them. However, I mean, we go shopping at Atwater, Turlock, Merced. I mean, in reality, we're actually losing a lot more taxes than what that is saying because we're leaving our taxes for them. So that's what I would say. So I think this is just a bad deal, I mean, all the way around, and we can probably go back and renegotiate with them.
And we also, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, on your comment about we're not Atwater, Los Banos, or Merced, that we want to be treated like Dos Palos and Gustin, they said, you guys are not Gustin and Dos Palos. They also said the same thing. We brought that comment point up.
I mean, can we get the, city manager's opinion about this? I mean,
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, basically, staff is in line. We worked really close. We shared all the information with the mayor. And so at this particular moment in time, the council can decide what direction to go from this point. We provided all the facts. We provided all the information. So,
I mean, do you want to give your opinion? I mean, well, Brad, I mean, he gave his. I mean, what do you foresee this as a good deal on the table as we take it right now for the future of Livingston? You know, my kids, other children's. I mean, they're the ones that are gonna get stuck with this. I mean, if we're here for 5 years, 10 years, whatever the case may be, but in the end, the public is the one that's gonna suffer. And guess what? How do we make up those taxes? They're gonna tax it. I mean, the cities obviously has to get their money. So, I mean, example, something's gonna go up, they're gonna tax us more, so.
yes, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, like I said, I'm in line with Brad. We talk about this all the time. And, I'm basically, we'll go in the direction that the council wants to go. My personal opinion is, we went head to head with the county, and the county was basically, on one end, I would say a little unprofessional on one end, with the mayor and myself and the other people that were at the table negotiating. So the one element that really gets at me is the fact that regardless of the cancellation and even after the 10-year, they continue to get the sales tax into perpetuity unless it's negotiated out. So that's one thing that I would, it's hard for me to swallow, but if this is the best deal, and it's up to the electeds to see how they want to fight it or not.
Council, any further comments? Public, any comments? Okay, workshop is now closed, and we'll go into our regular meeting at 7 o'clock. Thank you.